Welcome back
Hi,
to another episode of
Hot Pink Dragon.
Today we are thinking to talk about the inner child.
Very important subject.
Yes, and this is the foundation of all of the inner work
Yes.
that I would say we should be doing, but really it is just what we are doing, whether we know it or not, perhaps.
No, actually, most people are not doing it, and that's a problem. They need to do more inner child work.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very conscious work. Nobody can, it's not like we're doing it unconsciously. This is actually a choice to
Yeah.
that is where all our darkness is, and we can say we're doing it like while we're doing other things. This takes a really deep
Right.
intention, because actually most people don't want to go there.
That's true.
They don't want to feel it.
For a long, long time, until 2020, I didn't even know I had an inner child.
Yeah, me neither. I found out about my inner child 12 years ago. I did so much healing before,
Wow.
but I had the same things not getting really, worked
Yes.
out or wouldn't change. And the inner
Right.
child changed my world. I became a shaman, and it changed my world completely.
Absolutely.
I didn't plan to be a shaman.
So how did you connect with your inner child?
This is 12 years ago. I was still having like using sex as a way to push down my anger,
Right.
or so really bad sex, because that was one of my patterns,
Yeah.
I want to get love, and
Yes.
I use sex. And this was one thing that I couldn't get rid of. It took like that was a blockage.
Yeah.
Now I
Absolutely.
left at that time. I left something for me was like a cult. It's
Yeah.
called Access Bars Consciousness. So that's my.
Is it? I just have a quick
experience.
question. Is
Yeah.
the practice of access bars different from access consciousness?
No, it's the same.
Okay.
It's one and the same. I was with them 5 years, but for me, I started seeing that they were a cult, and this is not my way.
And she does not take that word lightly.
Yeah.
And she was actually, because she is so magnetic and so meant for greatness, that she naturally was very, very successful in access consciousness and friends with the founders and everything. And it was working with your inner child.
No, it was already at the end. I started seeing those things that I didn't like, and later when my third eye opened, I also saw what they do. But I don't want to go into access. Actually, I
Of
want
course,
to stay
of
about
course.
this. Anyway,
But
I
why
was
did it
coming
come
out.
up?
Well, I just needed to leave them at that point. And I've met a friend, and she gave me the book about the inner child, whatever. This is a long time ago. I don't
Yeah.
even remember. But I found out I have an inner child, and
Right.
I want to slap her.
Wait,
I was
so
like,
kind
shut
of
up!
in these transitions, she emerged somehow.
No, it was intentionally. I was reading a book. It's called Eva Pierrakos is the author. It was called The Path of Transformation. I remember, even though it's a long time ago, 12, like more than 12 years, they told me, they guided me, like, your higher self, look at your inner child. What is you?
Yeah.
And she wanted to complain. And I
Right.
was so used
Right.
to growing up being slapped around, like, whenever I complained. So I wanted to slap her. And my higher self
Wow.
said, no, you're supposed to allow her to vent. She's supposed to vent now. You don't like, she needs love. You can't do
Yes.
the same as has been done unto you.
So I realized that I abandoned my inner child. So there might have been, neglect wounds there that weren't noticed. For you, when she says she wants to slap her inner child, there was a lot of violence in her childhood.
Yeah, I grew up in violence, and I wanted to do the same. And since then, it's really something you work on. You start with it. This is not part of the session. The first part of the session, I see the inner child. Like, first I feel it in my body, the pains, what you're going through. And then I always see the inner child. And most inner children, except rare cases, are very upset. They didn't cry, or they didn't express. This is all like suppressed energies in the body.
Because children normally take things on.
And they take everything on. They will feel guilty about everything. So like it came up for you the
That
other
came
day.
up for me. Yeah, it's actually in relationships also, which we started with the twin flames. And in relationship, that's how I found out I have an inner child, and that's where I'm most challenged to show up for my inner child.
Yeah, because we're so used to also, if our inner child needs something,
Yeah.
usually we'll give it to the other person. So if you're in a
Yes.
relationship,
Yes.
you will give your all to the other person and completely ignore your inner child.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so I have a friend named Devorah, and anyways, let's make a long story short. When I was in Cairo recovering from a certain relationship, she told me, she was like, you are abandoning your inner child. You're walking right past your inner child and going to his inner child.
Yes.
And leaving your inner child crying, abandoned,
Yes.
upset, and asking, why are you acting this way? Why are you upset? What's up with your inner child? Instead of going to me and my
Yeah,
inner child.
that's a very common way that we avoid our inner child, distract from ourselves. Again, one other way to not feel.
Yeah.
But the most important work for what I've seen is the inner child. When I started working back then with the inner child, I saw that all my problems are in the inner child. She was angry, violent, hateful, full of hate, needy. So it took me a long time, and the more I would work with her really thoroughly, all my other channels opened. So the angels came, then Jesus came, and he would tell me, you can make mistakes, you're not supposed to be
Right.
perfect. And I started working with Jesus. Now he's one of the male healers.
Yes.
He doesn't take the inner child by himself, but because I didn't know about twin flames back then,
Right.
I would give my inner child to Jesus all the time to hold as a father, because he's the ultimate father.
Wow.
And I would give my inner child to Mary Magdalene as a mother, because I didn't have father or mother. So they were my new father and mother, and it was such a fun, and that is the main work with the inner child, to father and mother, or what you lack. For me, like I just want to say, I didn't plan to be a shaman or anything, but it just opened my channels more and more. It's like the more I cleaned and purified my inner child and heart, basically transmuting every emotion back to love, the more I could work with the divine. I got more responsibilities for the world also.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
suddenly a shaman, it's like you get more power.
Yeah, because I have a couple of questions that came up for me, because also your third eye opening is related to your inner child.
Yes,
work.
for example, I worked 10 years before the inner child. I was meditating like crazy, 10 hours a day in Nepal, 3 months silence, 10 hours every day, and nothing happened with my third eye. And suddenly, just trying to work with my inner child, succeeding, it opened completely. And I could see that everything in my inner child, for example, if she was fearful, a lot of anxiety I had, actually it's all connected to other lifetimes.
Right.
And
Right.
that's also what happens is in other lifetimes, if you didn't feel that feeling, for example, you were murdered or assassinated and you didn't go through the full feeling of it, you will bring it into this lifetime and it will come up in your inner child.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The inner child is like the trigger. Is not like the trigger. It is
The
holding.
holder. Yeah. You come with all
The
that
triggers.
baggage from other lifetimes. And actually, for example, with my father, I had these karmic relationships that he's supposed to kill me this lifetime, because I killed him
Yeah,
so
there's
many
so
other.
many episodes in this topic.
We'll get there. This is Ho'oponopono. But what I had to see, all my fears that growing up with this father of mine, who I love deeply, but we had a lot of karma. All that fear was actually from other lifetimes, and I chose this lifetime to cut my power and also go through all those fears again.
Right.
And we all do that. So when I give the session and I tell the person, you really have to connect to your inner child, and I tell them this is the most important relationship in your life, or every other
Truth.
relationship.
Truth. I can say facts.
Yeah,
I feel
including
not
twin
precedent.
flame,
With that.
are only mirrors to you and your inner child. If you're gonna love your inner child and like take care of her completely, then you will get that from the outside. The way your partner is treating you is a mirror to how you're treating the inner child. It's huge.
As crazy as that can sound, it's so true.
Yeah, it's
so
huge.
true.
It's huge because then you can take responsibility for every emotion. You know,
Yes.
they're not doing anything to you. For example, when I found out about the inner child, I had a relationship and he was violent, but because I knew that this is what I'm attracting because this is what I have inside of me. This is my wound.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, not that you should allow violence, but I
Right.
knew that I'm attracting this because of my wound. So if I was afraid, I'd go into the inner child and transmute first there and then outside. Now, he, for example, was very jealous about me. But I told him, go to your inner child. That's where it is. Because I'm actually not cheating this time. But
Another episode.
but he didn't. So he was in the same place, always thinking, she's cheating, I'm jealous. So because that was his wound. That's what he grew up with. While I used 6 years to work on my inner child on every detail, and then came Ho'oponopono because, anyway, another episode.
Yeah, Ho'oponopono, I'm just going to put out there and then we can get into it in another episode. Translates to, I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you. And it's a part of not being the victim, taking responsibility and clearing karma.
It's just an amazing tool that I found out when I had both my father and my ex-boyfriend like trying to kill me. And I'm like, can I have one crazy guy at a time?
And she's not exaggerating, by the way.
No, it really felt like that. And then this tool, Ho'oponopono, came. And before I did the Ho'oponopono, I could see all the lifetimes that I was a victim. Like I said, I started with the inner child, but I was crucified, burned, any lifetime that I was victim. Many lifetimes. But doing Ho'oponopono, I could see all the lifetimes as an abuser.
That's one thing I learned also at the end of my last relationship, seeing where some of so with my inner child, one of the things with abandonment was also proving that I was worthy of love.
Yeah.
And we were already in the process of separation, but there was a lot of poking around how I could never have proven my love, no matter what road I took. And I noticed this aggressor come out in me and the frustration and the ego rise, and I had been conscious of this for a while and wanting to handle my triggers the way that you would evolved and taking responsibility. And I snapped again. And thankfully, we were already friends now at this point, and she told me the victim becomes the abuser, and it finally clicked.
Yeah, that's very, very common. If you don't take responsibility of your victimhood, you will become the abuser because you're really believing that something is bad, they're doing something bad to you.
Right.
And that's when I told you, I remember I gave you the tool of the demon meditation.
Right.
Feed the demon meditation.
Yes.
And we'll talk about it more in another one, but feed the demon meditation is so powerful because you basically see the demon. For example, you wanted to snap, or you felt like you were victimized, so you can look at your demon.
Like a demon of aggression, for example. Like if I have that shadow that wants to lash back out, so there might be like a demon or an entity or something that's not working in your favor, that's not for Christ consciousness, attached to that shadow and that piece of you. So you connect with that energy.
Yeah, and that you actually you can see it as a demon, or you can connect with it in your body. You can feel it.
This is also related to the inner child, because this is also coming up because of the inner child.
Yeah, of course, because behind all demons there is an inner child that's hurting. Yeah,
yes.
And every anger,
so good.
all these, it's a wound. The demon comes in with. That's why it's so beautiful to feed the demon, because you ask the demon, what do you need from me? And then, like for example, a demon of control or a demon that wants to lash out. What do you need from me? Well, I need to be recognized, recognition that I'm trying. In your case, that I'm trying to give my best. I'm putting giving you all my money and stuff, and and you don't see. And
I'm like, let me feed your inner child.
And you
work on your inner child.
You still think that I'm not trustworthy. So then you have. I want recognition. So then you have to transmute yourself, your whole body, into a nectar of recognition. You let the demon drink it, and the demon eventually transforms into your ally.
Into an ally.
Yeah, we'll do a more, and then you ask the ally, how can you help me? How can you help me? And they do. The ally does help you, and then you transmuted the whole demon. In that relationship, all my demons came out from anger, like everything, hate. I wanted to kill the person.
Oh my gosh, I love hearing her say this, because a group of fabulous co-creators that's soul sisters of ours, I've heard them leading up to this point in my life talking about recognizing the killer energies within all of us and recognizing that we need to root into our shadows in order to rise, and that neglecting and acting like everything's okay and not addressing your triggers really prevents you from rooting down to rise like a tree.
Yeah, you cannot root if you don't do the shadow work.
Yes.
And this is in the macro and the micro, like there is no going up. Because they did like a root.
Yes.
And also, if you do, imagine you just rise and you get all this spiritual power.
Yeah.
And then and it's like having a bazooka. I mean, this is basically, sorry to talk about my father again, but what happened, he had all this spiritual, it's called the manic depressive, but actually it's a lot of spiritual power. But you have an inner child that's so upset. That's why he was so damaging to everybody around him. And anybody that's not taking care of their inner child,
Yes.
they can damage their surrounding is such, even their children. I mean, that's what happens a lot with the parents. They are damaging their children because their inner child didn't receive their love, the love that they needed, and they have to go inside and do, because it's easy to take it out on kids. Like I saw it myself, or on others. Kids is more, but even I saw when I was taking care of other kids, I wanted to slap them. But I was really breathing into it and looking at my violence, because I grew up with it. And then I could see I had so much violence in other lifetimes.
Yes.
So giving a spiritual power to people with when their inner child it's very dangerous. It's dangerous to have that power.
And I have to say, I know no greater defender of kids and animals than Danya. So what's so important is taking responsibility for your shadow as much as what we learned from the trees, right? Because she's also able to hear from the trees is that everything is love and what is not is just wounds. Yeah. So in the shadow, what you're working with is with your inner child wounds is unrevealed love.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you can work with that, you can do the nectar, like the demon meditation, and transmute something into your ally. What you're also doing is turning that shadow work into light work.
Yes, exactly. You really turn that. That's where the gold and the keys and everything is there. Mm-hmm. And this came up to me recently. With the tree kept telling. I got into a relationship with the violence came up. And I'm like, what the fuck? And the tree was like, remember, everything is love except these wounds. And I'm like, okay, so I'm just, I need to work more about my inner child. There's still a little bit of violence inside me. That's why this came up. And then I can do Ho'oponopono and release the other person with this thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for bringing that wound up again for me, and stay in love vibration.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because if you don't, what happens is you're going to be resentful and you're going to project all your wounds again on the other person. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't allow you to get out of it. But if you truly, okay, so this came up for me again, I'll go meditate, I'll look at my inner child, I'll feel again in my body. I want to give some tools. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
It's not so easy for everybody to see the inner child, but you can feel it in the body. So these are two ways that I use.
Hey team, so of course, I'm really excited for her to share her meditation techniques and her tools, but the technology got cut off, so we've tuned into it and feel like this means that we should create a toolkit playlist with all of her best tips and tricks. We love you. See you next time.
Love you.